14th. Admiral, this is
Blue Leader standing by.
This is Gold Leader, standing by. This is Red Leader, standing by.
Welcome to the Star Wars Post Livecast, the official livecast show of the StarWarsPost.com, your Star Wars home for news, reviews, features, and more. The StarWarsPost.com, the galaxy at your fingertips. And here is your host of the Star Wars Post Livecast, Max Pallas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Post Livecast. It's November 15th, 2018, and this is episode 23. Pedro Pascal is the Mandalorian. Type about that one. I'm your host, Max Pallas, and tonight we'll discuss the casting news for Star Wars, The Mandalorian, the news, and more. With that, let's meet this week's panel. She's a writer and contributor to the StarWarsPost.com, Liz Larson.
Hi, happy to be here.
Hey, Liz, glad to have you back. Let's see here. He's the owner and editor-in-chief of MandalorianWars.com, our good friend Pete.
I guess this means I'm not the Mandalorian. Sad.
You could be. You have the thighs for it, right?
Thank you.
You see? I'm nice. And he's also the senior content contributor to BlogWithTheHut.com, our special and returning guest from the beautiful Emerald Isle, Gary O'Toole.
Hey guys, how are you?
Gary, thank you again. Short notice, 2 o'clock in the morning. You're here like a champ. I'm so glad to have you. Thank you for showing up. All right, guys, before we dive into the news, because there's a lot going on this week, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. The Star Wars Post Livecast is also a podcast on iTunes. So if you can't catch the show on YouTube, you can get our lovely voices directly into your ears via iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Google Play. Also, please don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell notification for this channel on YouTube. It helps us out tremendously. We want to make sure you guys get episodes on time and make sure when a new one comes out, you guys are able to see them. We also want to hear from you. So if you have a question or comment, send it to livecast@starwarspost.com. And we just might answer it on the show, which I really have to do. I have to start going through some of them and start answering them on the show. We're going to have a new segment for the show with some questions. Okay, guys. So, kind of quick this week. We had a show on Sunday. I was lucky enough to do the Star Wars Underworld's new Kazuda cast on Tuesday. And now here we're getting back on Thursday. So, it's like the garage studio, even though it's freezing right now, hasn't really disassembled at all this week. It just seems like constant Star Wars. But we got lucky. So, a lot of news dropped earlier this week, almost primarily about The Mandalorian, with casting news finally. And again, it's coming from trades and other sources and not from Lucasfilm, which is starting to get kind of weird considering they're filming this in the middle of Hollywood and everybody and their mother's going to know who's on the set eventually. So it's really, I'm just really surprised that we've gotten that. Well, the first story out, and we'll just dive into some of the news before we get into major topics, was that Death Troopers have been seen on the set of Star Wars The Mandalorian. MakingStarWars.net is reporting that sightings from the set of Star Wars The Mandalorian, pictures showing our favorite all-clad in black Death Troopers. The troopers were seen standing alongside other actors draped in the familiar Imperial Trooper armor. So Jason earlier this week sent me those pictures, and I was shocked when I saw them because Jason's great. Jason from MakingStarWars.net is spending time on set every day and with his son, and they're taking really fantastic shots of the set. And some of the ones that Jason has released recently, yesterday and today, are showcasing first the Death Troopers, which are really, really amazing. So they're here now on the set of The Mandalorian. And I wanted to put this in our show notes and talk about it first because I think it's important because those guys have always been close personal security, right? We've never saw them like a special forces sort of thing. So why do you guys think they're on the set of The Mandalorian? It does seem kind of odd. Or am I the only one thinking that?
I'm of two minds. My first mind is canon mind, right? And
Sure.
My canon mind is going, that's weird. Who are they protecting? Trying to go back and getting on Wikipedia and looking up Death Troopers and reading about them and trying to figure out how they could fit into this storyline. My other mind is just the cool badass part. And for me, they are cool. They look awesome. Their costumes are amazing. Every time they come out, people freak out. So I'm of two minds. How much is this really about Death Troopers as kind of the Imperial unit? And how much of this is these are super cool, fun characters. And Jon Favreau or whoever else is let's use them. Right. So I don't know what side of this you guys are on, but I kind of see both sides of it.
Pete, what do you think?
Well, we've seen them in Rebels guarding Thrawn, basically, like you're talking about. And we've seen them in Rogue One with Krennic where they debuted. And, I think the backstory is they're genetically engineered or enhanced, basically troopers. But if you think about when the Mandalorian is set, if it's post Jedi, Empire has fallen, but there's still parts of it or installations that are active, it could be they're simply there guarding a warlord, or they've attached themselves to somebody and are working, or they could be freelancing. But it gives the main character a level up antagonist, sort of like a mini boss to deal with if he has to tangle with those folks, which is more than just your sort of garden variety stormtrooper to deal with. So it adds a little bit of a escalated sense of danger. And as Liz was saying, they're just kind of cool looking. So if you've got like super cool looking Mandos, you want some super cool looking baddies for them to run into.
I mean, Gary, what do you think? So here we're at the perfect era of the Remnant, right? The troopers are showing up, and we don't really know if they're still tied to any sort of Imperial governance at all. Are these guys freelancing on their own, just keeping their armor? What do you think about these Death Troopers? Do you think they're on their own, or do you think they're still part of like some regional governor?
Well, do we know for a fact that they are, in fact, Death Troopers in the literal sense? Could they be just imposters wearing the armor, similar to what we were thinking along the lines of with the Stormtroopers, perhaps some espionage or a splinter cell almost operating under the guise of the Imperial Order? I think with involving Death Troopers, I think it makes a lot of sense from the point of view of building upon the popularity of Rogue One. I mean, we know how much everybody loved Rogue One and the personal guard aspects, obviously looking after Krennic, but they are cast as being elite super commandos. They are a special forces operations division. And I think building on that success, we're seeing obviously Cassian getting his own spin-off series. So it makes sense to keep everything going in a loop, and that if we are seeing more and more aspects of the Death Troopers, then I suppose the want and the need for Cassian series to get off the ground and to get some early looks in that will develop further and further. The demand will be there. So I think it makes sense that they are perhaps giving a little taster of what may be to come, in the sense they are laying the foundations for the bigger picture that will develop over a period of time.
Yeah, my whole thing is like, okay, there's it's exactly what Liz said. It's the commercial aspect, right? These guys are a huge design hit. We loved them in Rogue One, but they only went down like an inch deep and a mile wide. And then we saw them a little bit more in Rebels, again, kind of staying at that surface level. So now we're in this new era of the Empire's completely fallen apart. We don't know if all these guys are reactionary on their own. Are they taking care of their own, or are they part of some regional governor that still sort of had control, wants to keep control? But according to looking at the picture, it looked like there was two of them. And they look like they're in the full regalia, like the full armor. So I'm kind of like a thing where I really hope we're not going to get just some extra or some stunt guy in the suit. I hope it's an actor in the suit. Because I think what would be really great for Death Troopers to actually put a face and a character behind the armor now. There's been, because they're so robotic, and so, especially with that kind of robotic voice that they give them to, it would be nice to sort of humanize them a little bit. Because then I think if you're a kid, it's like, oh, now it's almost like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. You want that character, right? Because he's a character, not just because he looks good. So I'm hoping they do that. That was a nice find from the set of The Mandalorian when Jason's coming with all these pictures, especially the one today where it looks like it's Carl Weathers, because Jason's had that scoop now for over a month that he thinks Carl Weathers is going to be part of the cast, and some of the pictures he did earlier this afternoon sort of looks like Carl Weathers. You know, I keep telling Jason to go rent a camera just for a day, like a long lens for his D3100 Nikon. He's got the same camera I do. I'm like, just go rent it for the day. But I think showing up there with a long lens is going to freak security out, because he posted this really great picture of Favreau and Filoni like waving to them from the set. So it's great that Jason's doing this. He's getting all these kind of scoops for all of us. And of course, everyone is following suit. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I have another question, which is,
sure.
So if I'm correct, this series is again I'm sorry, I've got doggy issues. The series is again taking place after Return of the Jedi, right? Like that's the timeline that we're looking at. Yeah. Yes. So another thing that I find interesting about that is like, yes, we didn't see the Death Troopers really much in the original trilogy. And so like, I think it could be interesting to think about where did they go, right? Like, I think that maybe that is a story that is part of it, is like they were created, you know what I mean, to serve their purpose in Rogue One. They're doing all these other things. Like, where did these characters go, and like kind of what happened to this elite force, right? So,
and it depends. Like, there were some of them that were on Scarif, right?
Mhm.
And the planet got blown up, so those guys are gone.
Yeah, they were part of Director Krennic's. I mean, Rogue
True.
One really gave the feel that the Death Troopers were part of Krennic's, like, just kind of special entourage. Rebels kind of expanded on that, saying no, they're part of the Imperial forces. They're just their thing. And
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Pete.
But I mean, and then the ones that were with Thrawn and his fleet, like the ones that are on his Star Destroyer, are often who knows where with Thrawn and Ezra,
Exactly.
and the rest of them are on ships that might have been blown up. So who knows how many of them are, and what rank did you have to be in the Imperial hierarchy to merit these guys? They're kind of like the grunts version of the Royal Guards, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why I gotta spend a little time getting into the canon, because it just seems like every book I pick up, there's some sort of special division of troopers. You know what I mean? And it's getting crazy with the First Order. It's like, okay, so you look at like the Battlefront games, and okay, here's this red stormtrooper in armor that we saw at the end of Clone War. I mean, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and then we sort of see an Imperial regalia, and then we hear about the I don't know if they're part of the 501st, part of Vader's Special Forces contingent that we got in the latest Thrawn book, right? Talking about those guys are awesome. It just seems like there's always, and I mean, that's common, I guess, for military forces to have separate special forces within different branches. But it would
That's
be
what I
kind of
was gonna
nice.
say.
Yeah, it'd be nice to
Yeah,
kind of clear
it's-
it up and like get an idea. Like, this is Imperial Navy. You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. I guess maybe that's a nerd of me. I want to kind of break it down so I understand. Because if the Death Troopers are going to stick around, let's start giving some history behind them. Like, because I really want to dive into those guys because they are such a great design. But ever since Rogue One, they've always felt like, it's almost like if you're used to racing a car, like I used to do, like in my college years, and you get into a couple of cars that feel very robotic, they give no soul to it all. Yeah, they grip the road and everything, but they just feel robotic. And these guys feel that way to me. They don't feel like a human character. Stormtroopers feel more human than they do, and we've never seen a stormtrooper's face outside of Finn. You know what I mean? It's just, for some reason, they're very robotic to me, and it's just, I would really like to hopefully see an actor that's going to be wearing that armor, and they should, because it's a cool ass looking armor. Okay, guys. So I guess we're done with that. So let's just jump into the big stuff. That's like super important. And I couldn't believe today. So, all right, how do I tack this right? So Variety came out with not an exclusive, but they came out with a confirmation story reporting that Pedro Pascal, the talented actor from HBO's Game of Thrones series and Netflix's Narcos, is the man behind the helmet in Star Wars: The Mandalorian. Pedro Pascal has been tapped to star in the Star Wars TV series The Mandalorian, which is expected to premiere on the Disney streaming service Disney+. Pascal's name had previously been rumored for the role, but sources say he was one of many actors being considered. Now insiders tell Variety that he has been offered the role and negotiations are underway. So, first premise I have, before I toss it over to you guys for your whole thoughts and fan following like I've been doing for the last few days, is Jason Ward got this story first at Making Star Wars about over 4 weeks ago. Couldn't get it confirmed, but Jason did his due diligence with other sources trying to nail down if Pedro Pascal was really going to be it. And the crazy thing is, this is not Jason's bag. Doing actors and picking actors is not something he likes to do for scoop stories, and it's tougher arena. You really have to know inside people in order to get confirmation of more than one confirmation to sell the story. So Variety comes up with this. They don't cite Jason, which got me a little pissed. But they have it. They confirmed. And apparently they've been in negotiations. And they still are, I guess. But the main question I have is, first, because we're going to have a bunch here tonight about this, who's the person in the suit that we saw in the picture? Right? The one that I've been obsessing the thighs over. Stunt person? Right? What do you guys think? Would you guys think that's pretty much what it was? Because that there's no way that's Pedro Pascal.
I'm so confused. Like, is it him? I have a couple of thoughts about it. One could be I always have a couple of thoughts. Just get on board. But like,
Why are you here?
One is, could it be the thing that I suggested at the very beginning when we very first saw the picture, which is that they're only worried about the audio, that we're not really going to see him out of the suit, that he is just basically doing voiceover. He maybe shows up once or twice in character, and therefore they just started filming everything else Darth Vader style with somebody else in the suit. The other thing is that the trades are off and that he's been on set this whole time and somehow they're hiding it. Both of them seem so unrealistic to me. So I don't quite understand what's happening because they are filming. Like, how are you filming without this main star? Unless he is not the Mandalorian is not the lead in the way we think he is, right? Like, unless there is Pedro Pascal is playing a different Mandalorian or a different main character. I don't know. What else do you guys think? I'm so confused.
No, but you hit it right in the head. They've been filming for over 5 weeks now. Now, I could understand, like, let's say they started early. They want to do plates. They want to see if this really upshot set is sort of the thing. They put a stunt guy in there just to do the suit. But even the stunt guy looks a little bit big for Pedro Pascal. And it's just like, okay, I can get that for a week. Maybe 2 weeks. 4 weeks? And, like, we know they've been shooting. Like, they're filming. They're not just doing plates and stuff. Jason's like, they're filming. So it's like, okay. I mean, the trades, no one's completely locked this story down for this cast yet because Lucasfilm has not announced anything yet, which is bizarre for me. If people are already filming, why does it hurt the production to put a press release to say who's in it? Unless they are still negotiating people. That's the only thing I can think of because there's no reason to keep this quiet. There isn't. I mean, people know they're filming. It's not like you're keeping it a secret at this point. I mean, what did you think, Gary?
The one thing that would spring to mind for me, being a massive long shot, would be the possibility that are they testing action and fight sequences? You know, how is this going to work? How are we going to approach this? With it being described as a real gunslinger type series, which I think is what we're hoping for, there could be the possibility of a lot of close-up POV shots, maybe done with a handheld camera on a gimbal. So is there the possibility that they are running these action sequences and figuring out how best to get the angles or how best to get the best shot possible?
Could be. I mean, yeah, I give them work for that. What do you think, Pete?
Well, along with what Gary's saying, it's possible because we've heard rumors they're going to be doing that sort of like real-time ILM, the CGI effects stuff, so they might be filming to test some of that out with shots that they can use as action shots where they don't actually need the actor on set to do them. They might be shooting ahead of time and just getting some of these shots out of the way so they can test out the technology they're using and make sure it's working right as they expect it to. But generally,
4 weeks with full sets is huge, even for testing. Like that's
a lot.
Even if you were testing, I'm remembering when they were doing tests for, say, of course, because I watch every behind the scenes thing for Lord of the Rings ever. When they were doing tests for Lord of the Rings, especially like the scale test, they did all of that basically on a green screen or like one set. They have built a massive set to not have any talent on it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And well, the thing is, Pete is sort of right in one way, but the Lord of the Rings thing is way more I mean, there was a lot more work to get that working, even in The Hobbit. But in this case, they're doing this special technological work with NVIDIA to try to really shorten up the production cycle in order to getting a lot of these special effects done really almost in real time. Like a lot of the work is being done on set, and then when they get to post, it's just less for them to do. But 4 weeks is a lot of time. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's like, okay, I mean, they could have just easily put somebody. They could have put the stunt guy in the suit and said, we're taking a picture. Because Jason blew the story. Remember, it all hit in 1 week. Mandalorian's filming. We have pictures on the set. And here's even the cast members, because Jason came out originally with Pedro Pascal. John Leguizamo, I can never say his name. Carl Weathers is another one of Jason's pick that he's throwing out there that he's not buttoned down yet, but we might be hearing soon. And they pulled the trigger. They had to put out something. So put the guy in the suit. And just, that's the picture release. And it's a wonderful picture, right? No one's complaining about the photo. I'm not. I think it's gorgeous. I don't care if it is a stunt double in there. Do I think, if it is Pedro Pascal, which I'm sure it is, we're going to see him with his helmet off a lot in the suit. I don't think it's going to be a Vader voiceover thing because the guy's so magnanimous on screen. You want his face more than you want the helmet. He's just that good. I mean, you can have both, but it's not the helmet that sells. It's the person behind it. And he's such, and I'm so happy with their choice. And I tweeted out when the news came out that Lucasfilm's greatest talent isn't their technological prowess for cinematography. It isn't their gift for storytelling. It is their genius in casting. Every one of their characters, the people they pick to play them, just fit. Whether it's Rey to Luke Skywalker, these people all fit their characters so well. And for this guy to be a Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal sort of brings the same bit that he did from Game of Thrones. It's that exotic fighter, really swarmy, really kind of, and I love how he's in Narcos, and I'm really wondering, is this going to be Game of Thrones Pascal, or is this going to be Narcos Pascal, right? I think it's going to be a little bit more like the Narcos one, and I'm hoping for that one, because that one's more gritty than I thought he was.
Also, just such an up and up actor. You said, Max, they're really good at, especially recently, not as much with the unknowns, but especially the people that they've cast. I mean, I take that back. Only Daisy Ridley really was an unknown. John Boyega was on the up and up too. But I mean, between Game of Thrones and Narcos, and you forget the fact that he's going to be in the second Wonder Woman. He's going to be in the Wonder Woman sequel.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's such an up and up actor, which I didn't think they were finished filming that yet, which could be part of it. I know they were filming that in DC, so maybe you know, Max, but I didn't think they were finished filming Wonder Woman, the sequel yet, or maybe they just finished recently.
They're probably done principal because they pushed back the movie, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have to do some pickups later on.
Yeah, I know they were still filming for sure in like September, August, so maybe they are done by now. But like maybe that had something to do with it, right? We're talking 4 weeks ago, so maybe he was still on set for that. But it's such an up and up actor.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that they picked him. You have something to say, Gary?
I was going to say another thing that could potentially be thrown into the mix is with so many different directors being on board to direct an episode of their own. Is it possible that they're taking a staggered approach, and that they have to figure out the flow of each episode, and perhaps this is an out-and-out testing phase for each director?
Yeah, well, we know that Jason had just posted a picture with, I believe, it was Dave Filoni was on set. So Dave Filoni will be directing one episode. I think the first one, I'm not sure. So you're going to see a lot of close collaboration between all these directors coming in, because, of course, that's the beauty of a TV series. Everyone kind of puts their own spin on it, but it's got to have some sort of, it's got to blend together. It's almost like a good whiskey, right? You want the individual barrels to be nice and different slightly, but the brand itself has got to stay on point. And I think it's going to be the same thing with this series. And I'm really looking forward, because I know Jason is just, especially with his son, they're just taking a bunch of pictures on set, and every day it just seems to be like a treasure trove of who's who on set. And I'm really looking forward to this. And of course, Pedro, I think, can bring, it's great for representation. It's nice to get another South American actor, a Chilean American, right? I think that's fantastic. And also hearing about, last week with the Cassian Andor series with Diego Luna, it's like, all right, like this is really, and I think that's what Lucasfilm was hinting at a year ago, when everyone rightfully got a little upset about how, when the directors were being announced, that when are we going to start seeing representation in Star Wars in the future? And they had, some people in Lucasfilm had blurted out that it's coming, we just can't talk about it yet. And I think this is part of that, where you're going to hear more and more and more come out as time goes on. But I am super thrilled for, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, Max, just to push back to I like to think that they had thought that, or you can see this as kind of a reaction to that, right? Like, if you're saying he's in talks, maybe they had been early talks with him, but
sure,
maybe they had him and some primarily white or British American actors, right? Like, so you can imagine that this could also be something that they had in mind, but also that kind of the outcry from that pushed them more in this direction. Or also just understanding that Star Wars is a global brand, and it's not just a brand anymore for like white men in America, right? That It is for a lot more than that.
Well, I mean, even if, let's say the Star Wars rep wasn't as on target as they have been, which has been great, right? I love the movement and the hashtag and what everyone's been trying to push and gaining ground in small areas, in the toys area and also in the films. Like we've seen changes over time. But like, if you're casting for this role as a Mandalorian, would you go with traditional white guy like me? No, I think you would want to go with someone who's a little different than what people see on TV all the time, right? And I just thought with The Mandalorian that we would see that. I was kind of expecting it. Like, I was expecting a person of color or someone who just wasn't plain white guy. You know what I mean? I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I kept pushing for Josh Brolin. That was just simply because of size, right? I wasn't thinking that they were going to go for that. But the fact that they went, and I'm still a little sore about that.
I almost tweeted it and then I didn't, that like you were just Googling pictures of Pedro Pascal's thighs all day, just like trying to figure out if the match was right.
See, with him, I didn't have to, because there's this great picture I've always liked of Pedro Pascal and the mountain. It was taken on set when they did their big filming together. Like both guys are like shirtless. They're shirtless. Yeah. It's one of my favorite shots, because you can tell the mountain is like an order of magnitude in size compared to Pedro Pascal. Like a chest size alone, it's like 3 times the chest size. So it's like when you look at the picture that just shows you with great lighting, good angles, and maybe there's another guy. I'm sure there's another guy in the suit. If they are in negotiations, my guess is Pedro Pascal has not been on set, because I think if he had been on set, people would have talked. It's only a matter of time. I mean, even the guy doing the roach coach, bringing the food in for the crew that drives in every day. If he sees Pedro Pascal on set, he's going to say something. I don't think you can go 5 weeks filming in the heart of Hollywood and not have somebody say something or see something. You see what I'm saying? I'm thinking maybe the lead actor really wasn't on set these last 4 weeks.
But is that where they have is that just this is maybe a stupid question, but is that only the place where Jason is seeing them film, is that only their external sets, or is that their internal sets too? Because there is a possibility that he has not done any of the exterior shots or the stunt shots that they're doing outside, that all of those are basically a guy in a suit, but that he's been filming somewhere else.
It's just one set, but I think there's rumors. I think there's a rumor that there's a second internal set someplace else in the studio because of the theft. I think when the story broke about a theft happening on set, that might have been a different set than we were thinking of. It's not the one by the trail yard.
So I can imagine everything's outside there anyway. And I mean, we're only seeing pictures of outside. That's why I'm saying it's a dumb question. There's probably some internal stuff there too. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they had exterior sets built elsewhere.
Yeah, it makes sense if they're trying to get a Western feel for that like town marketplace, just to do an exterior shot so you can get the natural lighting, so you're not having to do all the artificially light it in CG. But yeah, given Favreau's recent work, especially on the Disney stuff, they're doing a lot of soundstage work with CGI and green screens and stuff, and filling it in with special effects afterwards. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have similar workflow on this stuff with a lot of it.
I'm hoping they do a lot of stuff outside. I am, because the natural lighting. I mean, if you're going to do a dusty, sunny, Tatooine-looking place, it'll look like crap if you do it inside of a soundstage. You need that bright, glaring sunlight to bounce off everything to give that sort of that feel. And especially if this is going to be Western-ish, you really want to film outside as often as you can. And I hope they do. Soundstage is great, but, if you're filming in California, how often does it rain? Really?
But also compared to like the fact that they are at a huge disadvantage as opposed to other Star Wars properties that have filmed on amazing locations, especially this new trilogy, right? Like they have filmed on location for some of the most beautiful shots in the film. Even the little bit, like we didn't see a ton of it, but in Dubrovnik, right, for like the last one, and then in Ireland, and I mean all these unbelievable places. So for me, I think it would starkly contrast the visuals of the show to not have exterior built shots, like a lot of them, right? Because that is the Star Wars that we are used to now in this sequel trilogy, is the on location, real life sets, natural lighting, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but like if you think about the big issue with getting the live action series off the ground originally was cost. And so if you're flying around the world to shoot in multiple locations around the world, you're dealing with another order of magnitude of cost. And if there's areas they do have to keep the cost down for production, maybe that's one of the ones you deal with, especially if you are dealing with directors that are, basically guest directors coming in for a week and have other projects, and it's easier for them to make it to LA than to go somewhere else.
I like the idea. No, but I hope they go gallivanting around the country. The U.S. There are plenty of spots in the country where I think they've become more film adaptive. Like you can go to like Georgia. It's becoming very film adaptive, right? A lot of major films have been now filmed in Georgia, because they have a growing presence there for motion pictures. And, other places too. I'm like, what's his name? Taika Waititi? I always get his name wrong. I hope he goes rogue.
I think it's Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Whatever. I hope he takes his iPhone and like, we're going to go film this. Like, let's go to some exotic location and we're going to do this like rogue style. Because I really want, I'm sure we're going to see different worlds. I doubt this is all going to take place in one place. But then again, we only got like 10 episodes. We don't really have a lot to play with. But if they do, and they want to see some other places, that would be kind of cool.
Now, I have a question. I know Max talked about something he saw earlier. Did you guys happen to see the cell phone video that Pedro Pascal took from when TFA came out, I think it was? And he was taking his kids to the movies and either going to the movies or coming out, and he was like humming the Star Wars music and like narrating, and it was kind of hilarious.
No, I never saw that.
No, it's kind of amazing. Yeah,
We'll put it in the show notes. Give me the link. We'll put it in the show notes so everyone can go ahead and see it.
to track it down now. It was on Twitter, so it was pretty awesome though. So he seems to have some affinity to the franchise, which is always nice to see when you have someone coming in.
See, because we usually that's what I love about official announcements. When Lucasfilm makes an official announcement, it allows the actor or the actress to go crazy online, showing how excited they are, how much they've been keeping it secret, and they can't wait to tell the world, right? When they do it this way, when they're trying to keep it just low down, don't say anything, the actor can't come out and say anything because they'd be confirming a story, right? And it takes away their fun too. Even if it gets leaked to the press, fine, it gets leaked to the press. Come out with an official announcement right away so they can revel in it. You know what I mean? Favreau did when it was leaked that Favreau was going to be working on it. Favreau came out, I'm working on Star Wars. Like, he was totally excited about doing it, you know? And I would like to kind of see that too. Because if the guy is a huge Star Wars fan, and we don't know because Pedro Pascal, he isn't one of these guys that does a lot of rounds like on the Tonight shows and stuff like that. He does some, but he's not really out there as an actor. And even though we adore the guy, but it's just like, I can't wait to hear him go, guys, I'm a part of this universe now, and it's amazing. And because everyone's ready to wrap his arms around him. Like, the vibe I'm getting on Reddit, Facebook, other fans, family, everyone's just like, he's in Star Wars now? Yeah, like everyone is totally on board with that. And the guy had a very small role in Game of Thrones. It really wasn't all that long. If you add up how many episodes and screen time, it wasn't like seasons after season. It's like one season.
It was memorable though,
but
Max.
It
was amazing.
Oh, of course, especially if you were a person like me who read the books before watching the series on HBO. You knew what was coming, and boy, did they do that right. But you know, it's great to have him. I think he's going to be fantastic as this role because I think this will also put him on the map. If he really does a good job with this show, Pedro Pascal, I mean, he's already on it. This is going to blow up his career something huge because something different's going to happen here. And we'll get to that in the main topic once we move on. But we got him listed now. And then soon after, again, the Wrap, our good friend Humberto Gonzalez, Mr. Miami Bay, got a great scoop of his own that Gina Carano is also going to be on the set of The Mandalorian. The Wrap is reporting an exclusive that actress and former MMA fighter Gina Carano will be joining the cast of Star Wars The Mandalorian. Wow. I mean, they're saying that she's still she has a spot. They don't know her role. And I was excited about that.
Is she in the suit?
First thing I said.
Not a joke. She's ripped, man.
That's the first thing I tweeted. I'm like, so that's where those thighs came from. Right? I was thinking of the wrong person.
She's awesome. She's
incredible. I think she's great. Acting wise, I have to go out and see some of her other films because I've only caught like her role in Deadpool, and that was a very non-speaking role. It was just sort of stand there and just, look really tough. There really wasn't any kind of voice work or anything like that she had. A lot of dialogue. So what did you guys think when you heard the news?
I was pumped because... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Liz.
Jumping in. I was pumped. Well, I love Deadpool, and you're totally right. She didn't speak much in that, but she has such a presence on screen, and I really enjoy her. She's like a physical presence, and just like I feel like a really charismatic acting presence in that movie. But the thing that really stood out to me was I trust Lucasfilm, and to me, they have not gone wrong in casting. So I was almost excited for her in that I was like, oh, she can do more. I was like, they would not cast her if she could not do more. And so far, they have not done any wrong in my eyes in the casting that they've done since basically Lucasfilm has been bought by Disney. And so to me, it was just, wow, apparently she has so much more she can do. So it wasn't so much revisiting her past work as it was looking to her future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that, at least now we have someone that we know can stick the superhero landing for those awesome jetpack scenes in The Mandalorian. It's going to be pretty awesome. But yeah, I like Liz said, I haven't really seen her in anything besides the Deadpool, and I thought she was really, for what the role was, I thought she did a really good job in that movie. I really enjoyed her presence on screen. And I'm just looking it up right now. She's got a direct-to-video movie coming out called Daughter of the Wolf with Richard Dreyfuss that she's starring in, it looks like. So that's a piece to sort of show off her skills just as the lead. And she's also appearing in a Jason Mewes movie that he's directing, apparently. So I'm not sure what else she's doing in terms of acting, but I'm excited to see how they use her. And I'm guessing she's going to be kind of a bad A who is going to be rough and tumble right there with Pedro and the characters in the show. So it's kind of exciting to see.
What do you think, Gary?
I think if they play to her strengths, it's something that could work in their favor in the sense that we have this kick-ass, incredibly strong, authoritarian presence on screen. I would get the feeling she would do a lot of her own stunts. So if there is going to be a lot of fight scenes, hand-to-hand combat, I'm assuming Mandalorians are trained in unarmed combat, that would suit her down to a T. And again, as Liz was saying, you know, she has such a vibrant physical presence that I really hope it's not her under the helmet, because you want somebody who on screen is very, very expressive. You know, she exudes confidence and positive body language. And I think that's something that would give us another kick-ass female presence on screen and would be quite a contrast to somebody like Pedro Pascal, you know, being that very cool, charismatic, driven character. I think it would be a really nice contrast. I think they would work off each other quite well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see her do like Muay Thai boxing in the middle of the North Street, just knocking guys left and right. That would be fantastic. But I really hope with her, like, I'm totally on Liz's like ride with this one with her, because she's a really fantastic character. It's very rare in Hollywood where you get somebody from the sports arena, whether it's MMA or even football or baseball, something like that, and they transition to acting. And they have such a presence about them. That's the reason why, I mean, there's a reason why stars ride up in sports, because they're beautiful looking, they're really charismatic, they have great, personas about them, especially when the interviews and all that stuff, when she did her brief time in MMA. And when she transitions to this new thing, you want to hope for them to get a breakout role that could really either, one, teach them, and two, show what they can do. And Liz is absolutely right on this one. If Lucasfilm trusts her to do whatever role she's going to do, and she really digs deep and does a good job, this could be huge for her in a big, big way. I mean, The Rock doesn't become The Rock in Hollywood unless he gets the breaks that he gets, so he can showcase what he can do, you know? And if she's only had a few chances so far, and if those sort of don't pan out and you don't get a really great gig early, then odds are you probably never will get a great gig, at all. So for her to get something like this for Lucasfilm, that's going to get a whole lot of attention. Because I think the biggest part of this, and this is going to lead into our main discussion here soon, is I think everyone needs to take a step back and understand that the Star Wars fandom is going to completely change next fall. The Star Wars fandom, as we have always known it, the movies, some animation, even less for the books and the comics, has been in existence for 40 years. It is going to completely change next fall. When this show, and also the Cassian Andor show, comes online and becomes a major hit, it's going to be at the level of Game of Thrones, where regular folks every Monday after the show airs is going to be at the water cooler talking about it. It's going to be all over social media. You're talking moms, dads, regular folks are going to be watching this show. And it's going to elevate the fandom to a completely different level than we've ever seen. Because it's one thing for people to watch the movies, talk about the movies for a month after, and then regular folks live on their life. They don't talk about it. This is going to be a week-to-week thing. And that's what makes it different. You know what I mean? And I'm just going to go ahead, Liz.
Possibly week to week. We talked about this before,
Yeah,
but
we don't know. That's
depending on how they throw it out there, it could be very different. Because I think it would be smart for them to do week to week. Let's see what they do. But I think about the news cycle, especially now with Netflix and Amazon, with all these streaming shows. And sometimes it does become like, I don't know, I was really into Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It came out. I have been really busy. So when a year ago I would have binge watched it. I'm sorry, I can't talk. A year ago I would have binge watched it. Now I've been watching it slowly. But everybody watched it a month ago, and now nobody's talking about it anymore. So it will be interesting to see how they lay this out, because I do worry, if I'm Lucasfilm, that I put my 8 episodes out at once and people talk about it for a week and then it's gone. But I also worry if I put out an episode every week, it doesn't get the major buzz that it does and nobody signs up. So it's an interesting streaming problem to have. But the water cooler talk days, with the exception of Game of Thrones, are kind of over in some ways, right? Like not everybody's watching the same thing, and there are so many shows. I mean, there are a few, The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, the Shonda Rhimes shows, but there isn't the same market that there used to be for everyone to watch the same television shows. So I don't know if that conversation will be the same. It will change the Star Wars fandom for sure, but I don't know how much it will change the television landscape, if that makes sense.
On the bright side, we can all look forward to 1,000 think pieces about whether Star Wars can be prestige TV or not. So, I mean, we've got that going for us.
I think it can.
I'll write a few of them.
I think Star Wars Rebels proved that it can on a very small scale. It was almost like a test piece for a very small segment of audience. Could you do a weekly Star Wars that keeps people, even if it's a small group at least initially, and keep them around? And I really think that this show, the lines are blurring between TV and streaming. The years where we had Breaking Bad, Dawn of the Dead, what is it, Dawn of the Dead? I forget. I don't even know what that series was called. The zombie one. And all these other shows that come out. Most people have HBO. They have HBO because they want Game of Thrones. I think the Disney Plus streaming service is going to be a must-have in a lot of households. Simply for kids alone, it's going to be a value. $5, $6 a month, getting all the Pixar films, all this content is a no-brainer. I mean, you're going to have families across the country getting it. And especially when mom and dads know the Star Wars stuff is there too. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a non-starter. I really think that this fandom is going to change in a profound way and bring in a whole lot of people. I just think it is. In the regular, where we expect it into Christmas time, a saga film comes out, everyone gets together to talk about it for Thanksgiving, whatever. We talk about it for a month, and then regular folks move on. This is going to be a week-to-week thing. And I think they will do week-to-week. I think if you come out with 8 episodes, newsflash, I'm watching them all that first night. By morning, I will watch the whole darn thing. And most of the Star Wars fandom will. And the worst part is, if people who haven't seen it, there's going to be spoilers everywhere. Mm-hmm. Right? People just talking about it online. It'll be a nightmare. So you can have a streaming show and drag it week to week. I think the perfect example of that is on Hulu with The Handmaid's Diaries. Perfect example. People pay for the service because they want to watch that show. It comes on week to week. People talk about it throughout the whole bit. The Handmaid's Tale. Is that the name of the show? That is the name of the show. Right? I think that's a great example of how a show can be that addicting and getting people to watch and keep it week to week. I think it's a good thing. I mean, what do you think, Gary? Do you think they're going to go with an all-in-one, shoot it out? Or do you think they're going to do individual episodes? Weekly?
I hope they don't. I honestly hope they go week to week so that everybody is on an even keel. I think there's been way too much spoilers going on with respect to the latest sort of series that have come out. I mean, Sabrina was spoiled for a lot of people here within 2 hours. You know, everything was just out there. So I think week to week would be the sensible approach. I suppose if every episode finished on a cliffhanger, it would leave you wanting more, and that space of a week, I suppose, would lead to a lot of rewatches as well. I mean, a lot of people aren't going to watch it immediately. They are going to know that it is there, and they have the ability to wait, maybe watch it with family, maybe watch it with friends, and sit and digest and take it all in.
What the best shows recently in TV have done that has helped build audiences is that it's created their own little cottage industries of media analysis, deconstruction, coverage that comes out that night, the next day, and for the next week is the conversation. And so you build your actual viewership base that way because, everybody in the office is talking about this and Timmy's reading this on his screen when he should be doing work. What is this actually about? And so that's how you build the audience, exponentially going forward. So I think that's the smartest way to do it. I also think they don't want to have a bunch of people that subscribe to the service for like a week, or do the free trial and then bail. Because I know, a lot of people were doing that with different services, and when different programs pop up, that's the only thing they really want to see on there.
I mean, hey, look at me. I subscribe to Stars for 3 months a year or 2.5 months when Outlander's on. And then the rest of the year I cut it because it's just not worth it for me unless Outlander is airing and I want to see it immediately. So Outlander's great, by the way. But the other thing that I'm curious about too, and Max, I don't know if this leads into our next point here, is also just how are they going, to me, especially knowing that they chose shows that are deep in lore, right? They're not brand new ideas. They're shows that you need to understand, not need to understand, but they're based in kind of deeper lore, deeper canon, characters that already exist, or the Mandalorians that already exist, right? How do they get people into the show without thinking that they have to consume all the rest of the content around Star Wars? And for that, I think that will be a pretty big barrier. I think people will check it out. I think that first episode, if it's enough entry level Star Wars, if the story's good enough, if people get into it, it won't be a problem. But I do worry sometimes with Star Wars content, especially I remember trying to get people to watch Rebels that weren't huge Star Wars fans, that there was just an automatic turnoff because there was so much lore there, right? So I think that is something that I'll be interested to see how they play with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a given thing. I think for this show, and this is where the dichotomy between the two, between the Cassian Andor series and this new Mandalorian series. Mandalorian series, new era, right? It's an era we haven't seen before. It's right after Jedi and before The Force Awakens. It's that golden period. It's that golden period where we have very little of understanding of what happened. We have the Aftermath books behind me. And we have, what else do we have back here? We have Bloodlines. Right? Maybe. So it's like we have very little within that era and space between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And this happens right after. So it's going to be really interesting to see that compared to the Cassian Andor series, which is going to take place in the heart of all of it. The biggest things going on in Star Wars happens right before they blow up that Death Star. Right? That's where everything starts to coalesce. And as part of our show main topics here tonight, I definitely wanted to get you and Gary's opinion on the Cassian Andor series, because Pete and I were lucky enough on Sunday to spill ours. I'm dying to hear your thoughts, Liz, and you too, Gary, on what you guys think about that new series with Diego Luna now taking the lead, and what can happen in that new era, and who can show up. So, Liz, did you want to go first?
Sure. I'm obsessed with Diego Luna. I am. I'm obsessed with a lot of people, but I really love Diego Luna, and I loved Cassian Andor in Rogue One. I thought he was amazing. The thing, and maybe this shouldn't be my automatic fear because I did love Solo, was like, I don't really care too much how he met K2SO. I don't really care, like, I don't know if I want to see his origin story, if that makes any sense. I don't think we're getting that. Then again, I didn't want to see Han Solo's either, and I loved that. So who knows? But I think if we just jump straight in and have some straight espionage stories, let's do this Alias style. Let's have some spies. Let's have some Band of Brothers. Let's have some like deep war espionage. That could be really, really fun. And I've been to, I don't know if you guys have been, but I've done the Void, the VR experience, Star Wars, 3 times already, which is
amazing.
Is an excessive amount. I'm not going to lie. I did it for the 3rd time a few weeks ago, and it was just as fun. But Cassian Andor introduces you to that, and Diego Luna is like in a video that like welcomes you and like sets you up into the story. And every time I get so pumped. He's so good. Even in that little video introducing you to the Void, he's amazing and envelops you into the world and just has a real deep like grittiness to that character that I love. So to me, I was really, really pumped. It was unexpected. I don't know if you guys thought like this was where we were going. I definitely did not think this was where we were going. Again, it's backwards, which I feel iffy about, but you know what? For him, I'm here for it.
Very cool. Gary, what did you think about the new Cassian Andor series, and what are your hopes for it?
Oh, that excites me more than The Mandalorian. I never thought something would excite me more than The Mandalorian. For me personally, I think there's a couple of ways that I look at it. First and foremost, building on the success of Rogue One. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We know that there is demand there for more stuff in that era, particularly like Liz says, you know, espionage, counterintelligence, anything along those lines. Another thing that I think it's an opportunity, I think, for them to put together almost a dream team in that era. Personally, I would love to see Gareth Edwards involved in some way, shape or form. I think it would be a very, very smart choice to have somebody who was at that process from the beginning and somebody who knows those characters completely inside out to add another string to the bow as such. I mean, we know quite a lot about Cassian with respect to some of the literature that has come out, and in particular books like the Rebel Files by Dan Wallace giving us a further insight into that. And as Liz said, I know there are people who particularly aren't maybe concerned about how Cassian met K2SO. However, I think the process of turning droids from the Imperials over to the Rebels could be something exciting if we look at it from the perspective of something like eventually C-3PO having his network of droid spies across the galaxy. I think something along those lines could work really well. But particularly for me, one thing I want to see is, and I'm going to be heavily biased with this one, I think they could expand on Mon Mothma's story.
Oh, yeah.
And that for me is enormous. And the reason I say that is the actress who played Mon Mothma in Rogue One is an Irish actress called Genevieve O'Reilly. She is absolutely sensational. And I think that would be a massive opportunity to further expand on Mon Mothma's role. And clearly from Rogue One, and again with the Void, Cassian plays a central role in that. And I think that would be a dynamic that could go in so many different directions.
Yeah,
and I think
I'll be.
it's.
Go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, I'll be along the lines of Mon Mothma. I had a clear vision in my mind of who they could use for kind of the rebel side and of characters they could bring back, and maybe a network they could build there, and kind of how you would see that setting up. I'm really, really curious. I'm presuming here, maybe I'm presuming wrong, maybe that they will not get Ben Mendelsohn back for this series. So I'm kind of interested in seeing, I mean, I hope so, but I'm not
Krennic
holding
back.
my breath. But like, who will be kind of their baddie there? And like, I don't know. I would be interested to see kind of who they bring back. Will they have Vader pop up again? Will they have other people? I would be interested to see. Yeah, you have him. Why not use him? So,
I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in someone to play like an Asard figure, Imperial Intelligence chief, to sort of have spy versus spy.
Sure. And the thing, and I'm not going to get rehashed, but I did tweet out earlier this week, and it was something I forgot to mention on our show on Sunday, that I got my chips down, even though I'm wrong 99% of the time. I got my chip that Gareth Edwards has been working on this project, because as soon as the show was over, Pete and I went scrounging over to IMDb, looking up. The guy hasn't been working on anything for 2 years. Now, Magnus is also a friend of the show who's been on the show a bunch of times, had heard from his sources that the guy just took a break from Hollywood. I'm not buying that completely, because he's a guy who's created Cassian. He works very well with Lucasfilm. He plays ball, and he's very talented. And if you wanted, and he's done some TV. So if you wanted someone to really spark this thing up, remember, it could be just like the Mandalorian series. He doesn't have to do every episode, but could he be one of the directors and one of the chief writers on the show, including Gary Whitta, who I think also might write for the show, who I think would be great to write for the show? I think we're going to be hearing that too with Gareth Edwards. I don't think he's gone yet, because he knows this part of this era too well. I mean, you basically had him go through a whole education with Rogue One, right? Why are you going to throw that away? Have him start doing some of those episodes. And last week, of course, we talked about all the different personalities that can come, because this show really could be Star Wars Rebels live action, where every episode, there's special actors coming back. Special character that we love is coming back. So if it's only 8 episodes like The Mandalorian, will we see Mon Mothma? Yeah, of course we are. Are we going to see Vader, even the Empire? Even the Emperor? Sure, why not? They're relevant to the story. They're very relevant to the story, including Krennic. Because at this point, I don't think there could be anything bigger than the Death Star. Now, will the Rebels know about the Death Star at this point? No. Because at the beginning of Rogue One, that's the whole point. That's when they find out that this thing exists. But the tension there, it can't just be, well, we're just fighting the Empire. I think this whole series is going to take place that the Rebels know something's up, but they don't know what it is yet. And I think that's where you're going to see this Cold War, Berlin. Hopefully it's that kind of spy thriller where we're going to get that back and forth and then trying to figure out what's going on. Where it culminates to that first opening scene with Cassian shanking somebody in Rogue One. Like, that's what
I just want to see Cassian in the room with Genevieve O'Reilly, as we talked about. Yeah. Jimmy Smits, Forrest Whitaker, just having a giant row where they're all fighting, and Cassian's in there, and because I can just picture all those cast members coming back, because they're all very established veteran TV actors in addition to their movie work.
Yeah, like we talked about last week.
And I'd love to see that. And the StarWars.com thing, I know we talked about, like, dropped in their description, like, formation of the rebellion type of language.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted to hit on, which is I would be super interested if along with kind of the spy stuff, I would love to get in this because we haven't had the time to deal with it in the movies. We've gotten into it a little bit in the books. We especially saw it in the Leia book. Even though this was not in a different timeline, but kind of the internal struggles that the rebellion's having. Like, I would love to see kind of the political, like, did Cassian get along with everybody? Yeah, the politics of the rebels, and like, did they disagree on strategy, and like, where did Cassian kind of fall in that? And we saw it a little bit in Rogue One with kind of his mentality with the Rebel Alliance. But like, I think that would be a really interesting point too, to build conflict, build tension, not just between the rebels and the Imperials, but also like within the rebels themselves, right? How are they becoming this kind of force that could take on the Imperials? Because they definitely weren't that not too long before this, right?
And if you do that in the show, it gives you an even bigger payoff when you get to Rogue One and you see everybody united.
Big. Huge.
So that really
payoff.
pops.
Yeah, it does pop. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I want to see Jimmy Smits walking down the halls of the Senate again. Walking into the Emperor's room and having a chat. You know what I mean? Because I think that's the beauty of doing TV. I think a TV streaming medium is the best medium out there for storytelling, period. Because now the special effects have caught up basically to the movies to a certain extent. You have the time to tell really great stories. And when you have the time, you could do politics. And the politics matter. I know people are like, oh, I don't want... No, you need the politics. You have to understand how all of this coalesces. You got to understand... The politics brings the weight of how dangerous this is, right? Especially like if you have Smith walking into the... when you have Bale walking into the room with the Emperor, and the Emperor's trying to size him up, is he really... Is he an ally or is he against me? Especially if they move his office to the, the former Jedi temple. Like how much... And people will be talking about that for weeks once I show that. And, it goes back to this show that I think when you have it in this platform, if they do an episode a week, you're going to get massive rewatches during that week. If it's a great show on Sunday, I'm watching it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday with other friends and stuff. If it all comes out at once, I mean, when you binge watch a whole show, do you go right back to binge watching it again right after? No, not really. You might give it a month, right? Maybe even longer because you've been watched the whole season. I think when you do week to week, there's a lot of rewatch value, a ton of rewatch value.
And I know something we haven't really talked about. I don't believe we talked about it at all in the shows. That a year or two ago, Disney actually went into a deal with the MLB's advanced media department. That's the ones that ran the MLB.TV.
Okay.
And they actually licensed their technology to a bunch of the different streaming platforms and different providers. So Disney is going to be fully prepared, multiple devices. Like, you're not going to have outage issues with it because they're going to be running the best, basically, technology for this platform for the show.
Oh, it's all going to run on Amazon's cloud like everybody else eventually. I mean, the scale of this stuff is going to be insane. And, as a parent with 2 toddlers, I'm looking at Disney streaming service pairing out, not just because I run a Star Wars fan site, for everything else between the Pixar films, the good shows like DuckTales, and even the Mickey Mouse animation show, which is amazingly funny for adults. Like, adults should be watching it. It is some of the funniest writing I think I've ever seen in an animation show, and it cracks me the heck up. And Disney's putting all this content into a streaming service. It's like, I think this is going to be the final thing, at least for this household. We cut cable. I mean, other than that, it's just CNN, MSNBC, whatever news that I'm going to be missing out on. Between Disney, there really isn't anything else I need other than HBO. I mean, I think this is going to be one of those big leaps and moments, and Disney's going to make so much money from this. The question that Pete and I brought up last week that I would love to get your guys' opinion on is, do you guys think that they're going to be doing these shows basically where one set crew will be working on one show for 6 months, done, and then they'll be working on the other show for the other 6 months? Or you're thinking that this is going to be completely in parallel with different groups in different places?
Ooh.
I think with the manpower and the resources they have, I think it would make sense to do a parallel. They could certainly do it. They have enough creative talent and experience and budget behind them. So theoretically, it is possible that they could do it in parallel.
That's what I was going to say. I don't. I'm having a lot of thoughts. The
I love having
I think
that's on the show.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, how far along are they, right? Because I can see a world in which they shut down, pick up, and they always have something in production. They always have something going. Kind of for a while, what they thought that we were going to do with animation. But I also can see that they have to have this streaming service up and ready, and they have all these other shows in the docket. They have the Loki show. They have the Falcon and Bucky Barnes show. Bucky Barnes, that's right? They have the Scarlet Witch and the Vision show. And my guess is that it's a much larger schedule, and that the studio, whatever they're going to be, their Disney TV studio, is now going to be running all of these shows. And so Star Wars is just a cog in this massive wheel of shows that they're going to be putting up, and probably even more Pixar content exclusive for their site, more Disney Channel content exclusive for their site. So yes, I think they will be revolving, but I do not think they will be revolving in Star Wars. And in fact, there will be at some times multiple Star Wars things in production, and at some points nothing Star Wars in production, but that it will be a Disney driven machine.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
After thinking about it this week, I'm like, if you developed a really established film crew here in the States, let's say out of LA, right? And they're doing all their stuff. It's like, you want these guys working all the time? Just constant pouring out stuff. So if they could do 2 shows a year, and that's the kind of thing I was also asking myself as well. How many live action threads do you want going on in Star Wars? Is 2 series enough a year and just keep it at that? Or do you want to do 3? Or is 3 too much? Like, 1 is a little much too much. I think the Cassian Andor series has the ability, more than The Mandalorian, of really telling a lot of different stories, including a whole lot of different people. And then The Mandalorian is totally unique, and I love that about it. In fact, I was really excited for the Cassian Andor series, even, I guess, more than The Mandalorian, but the more time goes on, I'm actually more excited about The Mandalorian because it's new. Because it's
also
new.
We got one.
The Mandalorian has more longevity to it. Like, Cassian Andor has an end date.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it has a finish date, which is the fear we always had with Rebels, which is the fear we always had with the Clone Wars, right? Like, they make all these shows that have end dates, which is fine. And especially now that they have the streaming service, make as many shows with end dates as you want. Make miniseries, right? I think miniseries are great. Godless, which was a Netflix miniseries, was probably my favorite show of last year. Like, it was amazing. So make miniseries, but you also have to have something that you could run for 4, 5, 6 seasons. And The Mandalorian is that, right? They put it post Return of the Jedi. There is nothing stopping this show. If it is successful, it could blaze forever. It could be a Stranger Things, right? Like, it could just, people are eating it up. So to me, I think you have a mix. And I actually think the Cassian Andor series is going to be 8 episodes, maybe 2 seasons. That's it. Or I could even see them doing it Sherlock style, where it's that British kind of 3 episodes, movie length features, comes out maybe once every year and a half whenever Diego Luna's free. Do that. Why not? But then if that's the case, if these are more limited things, make more series. Like, if they're actually trying to compete with a Netflix, with a Hulu, with an Amazon, go on there and scroll. Like, there are hundreds and hundreds of movies and shows on there, and they are fortunate to kind of have, like, Disney can pull over some of their things that they've already made in ABC Studios, but they're going to need to put a lot of stuff on there. So I don't know, go for it.
I just had a thought.
I gave you a lot to process there. Don't worry about it.
It did. Well,
I gave myself a lot
and
to
it's getting
process.
super cold in Garage Studio. I'm sitting here with my Wampa tiki, like, freezing to death, but my feet. But I think the thing that I'm getting to now is the amount of content that this thing. And I tend to get very tunnel vision because I'm always concentrated on Star Wars, and Marvel is a big part of this that I'm not looking into, and that is a lot of content to be coming down the pike, because I think even as an organization, even though they like to silo everything, right? Star Wars, Marvel, you have to look at the picture as a whole. And if you look at all the number of shows that's coming, it's a lot of work to get done to be squeezing through this one pipe. So the question I'm really going to be wondering is, The Mandalorian, the reason why I think I'm putting it at the top of my list, even though Sunday I was so deep into the Cassian Andor series, is because honestly, with the exception of Star Wars The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, all of the stories we have gotten have all been prequel storytelling. Whether it be Rebels, Solo, Rogue One, it's all prequel storytelling. And prequel storytelling sucks. Because what makes storytelling great is you don't know the outcome. Prequel storytelling, you do know the outcome. You're just working your way back. And a lot of that shock, a lot of that whole thing is gone. It's just remembrance. And the Mandalorian has a chance to shine in a part of Star Wars that nobody has been yet, which is important. And I think it's the most important because what the Imperial Remnant, what they're doing at this time, and what the New Republic is doing is super important, right? To see how all this fleshes out. Because some of the greatest storytelling sometimes isn't during war. It's right after it and what happens. And that's when the real stuff starts to change. And then, of course, it inevitably leads to war again. So, Gary, do you think there's room for another show before they finally give us all these announcements and celebrations? Do you think there's one more in the pipeline that they're not telling us about that may be coming for this series? Or do you think that this is going to be two live shows with a streaming service, episode 9, and like that's it for the next 2 years?
I think these two shows will be it for the simple reason, I think with them finishing off the Clone Wars arc.
Yeah.
The Clone Wars arc has to be the center of attention in terms of a show of that ilk. Let that chapter finish and use the Mandalorian and Cassian's show as, I suppose, testing the waters to gauge interest and what demographics they're going to target, and then the reaction that garners build from that. I would love to see another show put on personally, but I think those two shows will be it, along with episode 9 for now.
Pete, do you think they got another one under their holding their cards before we go to Celebration that they can announce, or do you think this is
depends on what? I think it's likely. It just depends on what their conception for the Andor series is. Is it going to be like a one season type of series? Are we going to like? I know they're with the Marvel. They're talking about the we just talked about it last week. Scarlet Witch and
The Vision.
Loki, and the Loki series is, and like they're bringing in big name actors for limited run series. So I could see those being one season series, and then the next year they do a different actor, just so they don't tie up these big movie star actors for long term when they could be making movies. Instead, they're working on the TV show for an extended period of time. But I could, as you guys were talking about a few minutes ago, in terms of production schedules, they've already said that ILM is opening up a new TV division. So while ILM is big, they're going to have a smaller shop that's working on the TV stuff. So I think they're going to be staggering stuff. I don't think you're going to see them in the same production cycle concurrently with Cassian Andor and The Mandalorian. Mandalorian's already in production. They haven't, like, I know Luna was saying that he doesn't know anything about the show yet, so he hasn't seen scripts. Who knows if they even have any scripts done yet for the show?
Yeah,
like that, I think that one's going to be a much further out, like at least 6 months to 12 months after The Mandalorian comes out.
Yeah, I get that feeling too, that this wasn't a project they had under their things for 2 years. But then again, I wonder, because let's say I'm right and Gareth Edwards is part of this project, then he's had 2 years to work on treatments, scripts, stuff of that nature, right? But what if this was pretty much picked up in the last 5 months? If they're doing the streaming service, they had those discussions early on. What are we going to do for Star Wars? Because they're talking about the Marvel stuff. We're going to have these new series, so what are we going to do for Star Wars? So I would think at least the treatments, the understanding of what was going to happen, had to be done years ago. 2 years ago, they had to figure this out. They might not know who was going to play what, but they probably knew the time era, and they probably started working on treatments. And I really doubt I'm sure they've been working on some levels of scripting. They had to. Well, I just don't think them coming with a new streaming service show in the last few months, or even the last year, making up their mind out of nowhere, saying, let's do a Cassian Andor series. I think that's kind of, especially after Solo doing what it did, and their whole talk of slowing down. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
I find that suspect.
And we know that they went through that whole period where they were hearing tons and tons of pitches internally.
Yeah.
Based on, and they've also been feeling out directors pitching. So it's entirely possible they have like a giant like binder somewhere full of like project pitches. And when Iyer comes to them and says, listen, we got the streaming service coming down the road. We need ideas for shows that we can feature on this series. And then they start discussions like a year ago, 6 months ago, whenever they started really heavily getting into trying to map out what they were going to do.
Can you guys imagine being in that room
dozens.
for that discussion, for that workshop? Imagine being at Lucasfilm with Kathy and everyone just having coffee, someone bringing in donuts, and you're going to sit down for 2 or 3 days, and you're going to do pitch ideas for a show.
That's my dream.
That's a dream job. I mean, it's not my dream job, but I could see that being like a dream job. Like if I couldn't do cybersecurity more, yeah, like that would be really fun to do. You know, I mean, that's got to be, to me, that's just, the energy in that room must be insane. Like, how do you do that? Because you know you can, you have the money to do it. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, especially because I always look at through this lens. When George was still there at Lucasfilm, after the prequel trilogy was done, a lot of people at Lucasfilm didn't know what was coming next. They didn't know what was going to happen to the company. I mean, Pablo talks about that often during those years that nobody knew. Like, what was going to be next, if they were going to even do anything next. So to see them go from that just, less than a decade ago to where they are today is insane. I mean, I'm so happy for all of them. I really am. Because, I mean, they walk into work every day doing this, and this has got to be, like Pete says, I would kill to see that binder. Because I bet you it's got some of the funniest anecdotes and the funniest, like, pitches you could ever imagine. But they're probably really great, too.
I have a theory.
Sure.
And my theories are not considerably better than Max's, but I think I've had a little bit better.
I'm wrong all the time. I'm wrong all the time.
I think you're talking about what are they holding out for Celebration? Is there another series in the pipeline? We have heard for a long time that John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, and co. have been touting the company line of 9 is the last thing. Mm-hmm. Like that's my last scheduled appearance or something. I think it's the end for Daisy Ridley. I think she's done after this. She's made that pretty clear.
I think she's gone.
I'm putting my money on a Oscar Isaac, John Boyega series. I think it will be a limited series. If they can get Tom Hiddleston, they can get Oscar Isaac and John Boyega. I think they will be a post-trilogy TV series. I think they will announce it at Celebration, and maybe it'll be a Phasma series. Maybe it will be something. I think there is a sequel trilogy series in the works right now. They are trying to get major talent to sign on. My guess would be they're going after Gwendolyn Christie, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac. Those would be the 3 that I would put money on. It'll be one of those 3. Maybe all 3 of them. Maybe it's a series with all 3 of them. But that is my prediction right now.
Well, there has been rumors, and I've had discussions with folks over the last 2 years, especially around the time of The Last Jedi, that there was a lot of talk of the First Order is going to go on. Like, this is not setting up where 9 would be that the First Order is defeated, good guys win, it's the end, like Return of the Jedi. That, in fact, it's something a little bit different. Individual characters arcs, ones like Skywalker saga will end. Daisy Ridley, her, with Rey will end. But the First Order taking over will continue on. And there's a power struggle within that. Rumors, people talking. I mean, nothing was ever big enough to ever write on a piece or get locked down. But when you start talking to a bunch of different folks, you start getting a vibe of what's going on. And sometimes a vibe is good enough to give you a feel where things are headed. And I hope we sort of live in this time period for a while longer. Like I mentioned plenty of times before, I fell in love with Rey in this era of Star Wars after such a huge fight for the Imperial to lose. And I think this unknown regions, these guys coming from nowhere, starting stuff up, rebuilding everything from scratch is enticing to me. It's a comeback story for the bad guys. You don't usually get the bad guys having the comeback story. You know what I mean? In this case, it's different. And I hope we live in that space for a while. I hope there is a live action series. But the great thing about this whole new platform is it's not like before where you have principal actors who do big movies like Oscar Isaac, who's a lead role in many films outside of Star Wars, go, oh, I don't do television. Oh, no, they do television. Now they will. Streaming services, they will. It's got Game of Thrones and these sort of shows like Handmaid's Tale have risen what people think about these platforms, and getting big name talent isn't as hard as it used to. Do I think you're going to get Daisy Ridley to come back? No.
No.
Do you think you can get Adam Driver to come back? Hell no. But will you get an Oscar Isaac? Maybe. Will you get a John Boyega? Yes. And I don't like to say this to kind of bring down the actors, because I mentioned this last week. I hate to call them B-level actors because they're fantastic actors, but their cost and their availability is way better than the creme de la creme. We're talking to people who have films locked up for probably 2-3 years out, that it's hard to get them.
I would push back that it's not even B-level actors. It's kind of the actors who think of themselves as prestige actors. Because look at Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Cumberbatch has been like nominated for serious awards.
Prestige actor.
Yeah, he is a prestige actor, but also he goes back and does Sherlock any chance he gets. And like he's like been in talks for other TV projects. Actually, he did that show. What was that show that he did last year? He was nominated for an Emmy.
Melrose.
Yeah.
It's sensational.
It's really good. So like Benedict Cumberbatch for me is someone who I would definitely consider an A-list actor, but it's like he doesn't have that kind of, I don't know what I want to call it. Like he doesn't think he's better. I don't want to judge actors.
I know. I don't want to say choices. Proud. I'm struggling to find a word too. It's not but ego either. It's just sort of like they think it lowers their brand.
Exactly. But Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver to me particularly seem not receptive to doing that kind of thing and just don't see themselves open to it. And you see that by the choices that they've made in their films besides Star Wars.
But Adam Driver did a great job in, was it Girls on HBO? That's where he got his start.
But I
don't see him going back to that. I think as an actor, he wants to do serious stuff that challenges him. And TV sort of doesn't do that. I don't think as much as films do.
It's too much sitting in that one character. Like to him, he doesn't see, I don't think he sees kind of the possibility of sitting in one character longer and like the promise of that as an actor. But like, that can be very challenging as an actor to like be in that one character and like how do you make that character grow and how do you change it and how do you keep it exciting and like how do you get the TV audience to invest in your character? Because we don't invest in all TV characters, right? But you can think of iconic actors who have made TV characters likable and personable and you just like can't get rid of them. Think about what happened when this is such a weird example, but when when they killed Patrick Dempsey off Grey's Anatomy and people all those articles came out, they lost their mind. But like that is great acting. That's getting people to fall in love with you. So but I just feel like Gwendolyn Christie, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega would be more receptive to that. Oh my gosh, whatchamacallit is on a show now, which plays Rose. She's on a show right now. So the Facebook show with the younger Olsen. I'm giving it a lot of weird facts right now. But
it's okay. That's why you do it on video. Like, we can go back and check it.
But I feel like it is a real possibility to get some of these actors who aren't so close-minded to the opportunity to do it.
And that's what's got me excited by the Cassian Andor series, because it is all these actors we fell in love with, even though we saw them briefly in Rogue One and also in the prequel trilogy. We get Bale back. We can get Mama. We can even get a young Leia. If they really want to be a progressive and crazy, they could even do that if they want to.
Can I throw a pitch out since Liz is doing pitches? Can we do a pitch meeting right now, Max? You laid it down. You bring up the young Leia idea. So episode 7 of Cassian Andor, you have Bale show up with Millie Bobby Brown, which everybody seems to want, as Leia.
Sure.
And you have the soft launch for a young Leia series on the streaming service. Instead of a movie, a series. And you can bring back Smits. You can bring, Leia back. You can, I'm not sure what the actress's name is that played Bria in the movies, in the prequels. But you have a star that's might be done with Stranger Things after season 3, depending on what direction they go with that series. So you might have someone that's available and someone that the fan sort of already been basically casting. And you have all these potential stories down the road where you could just, for a year, just go off and do a series about this one character at this one time period. Plus, you already have resources that you've built up for sets and costumes that you're using in The Mandalorian, that you're using in the Cassian Andor series, that you can port right over to this other show. So you're, again, saving costs. You're reusing sets. You're reusing props, reusing costumes.
3D models, all that kind of stuff that matters.
All that stuff.
Here's a question for the panel. If you guys had your say, would you rather Lucasfilm focus on live action series shows where it's just a 1 year, 2 year thing for them and that's it, or have a show that goes for multiple seasons, 5-6 seasons? Or do you think they should do a mix, one like that and one so you get these different strains? Liz, you can go first.
Mix. I think they should do a mix. I think that's the only way to keep like the streaming shows relevant and exciting and different. And also, if you do one or the other, you're going to get different types of talent, right? So I would like to see shows that have the talent to sustain for 6 seasons, that have talent that's ready to sign on for that. I would also like to see them get A-list big name talent who will only sign on for 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So I would like to see both. Also, can I make it, if we're pitching, can I make another pitch?
You guys are always allowed to pitch.
They have, I would like permission. They have to make a Star Wars Christmas special for this series. They have to. They have to. Netflix is doing it this year where they're making a ton of holiday specials of their like favorite shows. I know Sabrina's doing one, and they have like all these other like holiday specials on Netflix this year. They have to do it. They have to make a Star Wars holiday special. I'm putting it out there to the Star Wars gods, and it shall happen. All right, Dave Filoni, make it happen.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
I'm being honest and forthright because I like to do that with my readers and my viewers, that I have yet to watch the holiday special.
I've watched bits of it on YouTube.
I have
It's kind of
made it a
painful,
purpose
but...
to save it around the holidays. I told myself if I ever found a time where I wanted to watch something absolutely ridiculous by myself, once the kids are in bed, like the wife's asleep, and just I'm waiting for that special moment, because I have for the last almost 4 years now, running a Star Wars fan site and hearing the stories about this stupid show. I'm saving.
Just make sure you're sober.
No,
No.
So I have questions.
We need some.
Should I be sober?
We should do it.
Yes.
And we should do
be
it
sober.
So
I think we should drink it and watch
Liz,
the show.
you've seen pieces. Gary, have you seen the whole thing?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Pete, you have seen the whole thing, probably multiple times.
Oh no, I only could make it through the whole thing once. I'm sorry.
No.
So Pete and I will be drinking.
Maybe we should do a live stream viewing near the holidays.
I think we should. A Star Wars post livecast Christmas holiday special.
I'm willing to get out of ketosis to like get drunk and watch. This is worthy of the holiday. But I do that. It's like me. I purposely will leave a Charles Dickens book, not read. I mean, I will list my favorite authors' books for later on in life when I'm retired, so I can read them. Like I purposely will go out of my way not to read them, so I have something to read later. So that whole thing from Lost that I got from, was it Desmond, who had that thing for a Charles Dickens book that he saved last, so he for later on in life. I'm kind of the same. I followed in that same suit. So the Star Wars Christmas special was sort of falling into that bucket, that I really wanted to save myself for a really special occasion to watch it and to do a review of it, because I'm really looking forward for me writing the piece going like, what the hell were you all thinking? Because somebody posted an animated GIF today of it on my Twitter feed of Han Solo hugging one of the little Ewoks and saying, "Come here, little guy." It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm screaming. Like, this is crazy. Like, do I really want to watch this show?
I think Harrison Ford is the one coming after. Like, whenever they're taken off YouTube, I think it's Harrison Ford going through. Like, I think he does nothing. The reason he's not in a ton of stuff now is because he just spends all of his time on YouTube trying to get those taken down. Like, he is so worried that they're tainting his legacy. They're that bad.
Crash.
They're that bad. Yeah.
He's texting while plane flying.
He's like, take it off the air. Like, he just can't. Though I don't know who's more embarrassed, George Lucas or him. So like, it's a toss up.
It astounds me that, when you're covering everything for a fan site, that the amount of content, and I mentioned this on Sunday's show, is going to be insane. I mean, we're still forgetting the books, the saga films. I still think Obi-Wan is still on the docket. I still think that's getting made. It's like, there's going to be so much happening in 2019. We're going to need writers. We're going to be having, I think these shows are going to be so chock full. And it was great being on the Star Wars Underworld podcast this week, because talking with those cats who I've become very great friends with over the last few years, they're thinking the same thing. Like, they have separate shows for Star Wars stuff, for now, of course, with Star Wars Resistance. And it's like talking like, what are you guys going to do when the live shows start? Are you going to have separate shows? And it's like, they haven't talked about it yet. Like, it really hasn't dawned on them the amount of content that's coming. And just looking at that with the books and the comics, which I feel bad because I've sort of walked away from Marvel Comics recently, and I'm sorry to our viewers, but what happened to Chuck Wendig? And I'm still waiting on an announcement, because I put my foot down saying I wasn't going to talk or review the comics, and Vader's coming out. And I heard the Vader comics have been great the last 3-4 weeks.
The ending of the Vader comic, oh my god.
And that's what's killing me, because I've been so invested in that comic for the last 2 years, and it's some of the best Star Wars I have ever read. And I'm thinking about
Soul involved.
Yeah, and
I'm live action TV.
I'm really like, I want to break my stance on this, because it seems like it's a dead issue. I might as well just do it. But I miss reading the Marvel comic, because I think Soul did just an amazing job with Vader. And I'm lucky to have you guys around. I think this show is going to get super popular because there's just going to be so much to talk about. And I can't wait to get more special guests, especially you, Gary, back on again. And future people like Ali was here last week. And I reached out today to a bunch of people. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it because of scheduling conflicts. And that's hard sometimes on the show. But, it's just amazing me with the Cassian Andor series and the Mandalorian now speaking up. It's crazy. And Resistance is starting to find its stride after only 6 or 7 episodes, which I'm very proud of the show for getting there. I mean, we had a great discussion with those guys, Star Wars Underworld, this past week. It was great to sit on a podcast dedicated completely to that show because for those last couple episodes, yeah, I mean, if you put off Star Wars Resistance because you think it might be a little bit too kid-like and early on you don't want to give it to it, find some time, give yourself a little binge watch, catch up because it really is amazing. It's really starting to find its stride. So with that, guys, I think we've had a pretty long show tonight. I think we've gone through the whole bit. I'm super excited. Like, I think I haven't been since 2015. This Cassian Andor series really has sparked. I mean, who had that in the betting pool? Really? Like, no one had that one in the betting pool. And I really wonder if they got another one underneath their, hiding their cards for one more. Because I think, honestly, if some of these are for a couple of years, they're already working on the ones after. And what that's going to look like, right? So, with that, everybody, we had a great show tonight. Gary, thank you again. And Gary, how can people reach you or find you? On Twitter and everywhere else?
All across social media as @Plo_cool. Cool with a K.
Very cool. And Liz, of course, how can people reach you on Twitter?
I think I'm Liz with a ZZE Larson at Twitter and Instagram.
And Pete, where can people reach you at?
Just don't. But
that's the highlight of my day. Is like completely shadowing your Twitter.
The Pete Awakens on Twitter is the easiest way to find me. Just be aware, I'm kind of salty on a number of subjects.
Oh, who cares about that?
Pete never.
Pete is Pete. And you could also find him in the MandalorianWars.com. And Pete, you must be having a whole lot to write about. I mean, coming up with your site.
And unfortunately, since we're doing so much, house hunting and different stuff, I have a couple articles to catch up on.
Yeah, the content writing is starting. Even I'm starting to latch up with getting back into keeping up with the news bit and the features. We had an exclusive last Friday, and it's just the posts are looking great, and I'm actually looking for writers. So if any of you out there have a little talent, you're in college, you want to get your feet wet and do some writing and submit it to us, reach out to me for the contact page on the StarWarsPost.com. I love to hear from you. And we've had a bunch of writers in the past. It was a great way for people to get their start if they wanted to do it. And sometimes, I say yes often, especially if their writing is really good. I've been lucky so far with some great entries, like with Liz have done stuff in the past as well. But yeah, reach out to us. Okay, guys, thanks everyone for watching tonight's show. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel on this podcast on iTunes. Have a great night, everybody. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube at The Star Wars Post. Okay, guys, have a nice night.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Star Wars Post Livecast. Please subscribe, rate, and review our livecast on YouTube, Facebook, and iTunes. And don't forget to get all your Star Wars news, reviews, features, and more at thestarwarspost.com. The galaxy at your fingertips. Good night, and may the Force be with you.